Whether you agree or disagree, or it just simply goes over your head, you can still quote me, because that's what I said.
Hey y'all, how y'all doing? This is Native Girl. This is my fifth video that I'm coming at you with, and I think this is where I'm gonna stop counting. I don't think I'm gonna mention how many videos I've done, but I was kind of keeping track, but I think I'm gonna kind of lay out for that now that I've done five now. This video was supposed to have been done on Easter, but Easter got a little crazy, so I didn't get a chance to do a video on Easter. So this one's a little behind, but basically this topic is a trip down memory lane for me. As you can see by my border, this is about my childhood memory. So whenever you see the border in front of you on screen, that is to represent my childhood, things that I've learned, and things that happened, memories during my childhood. So I really want to talk about Easters that I have endured in the past, what it was like as a child for me. With every person, it varies from person to person. You can't determine what someone's holiday will be like. So I just only can speak about what mine is. Y'all hold on a minute. I gotta increase my screen here, but there we go. All right. Um, I've stated before that I'm a Christian woman, and so my journey with Easter began when I was old enough to know what it was. Um, I remember celebrating many Easter Sundays in my church. Um, the preparation was just as important as the actual day. Um, I know in my household, my mother knew that she had to get, when we were little kids, I don't think we cared too much like when we were real, real little. But as we grew older, she knew that Easter was about new outfits. You had to have a new outfit for Easter. That was just commonplace. When I was little, I remember being dressed up in frilly, girly dresses. And the biggest memory that I have, and I hated it, I loved the result of what it brought about. I just didn't like the process of getting there. And that was getting my hair done. Now, white girls, Hispanic girls, y'all may have a different process than African American girls, but our process was just a little different. I know for me, I usually wore my hair in a natural state, which means that my mother just greased my scalp, combed and brushed my hair, and probably every week my hair got washed once. Once a week, my hair would get washed, and then the rest of the week it was, just grease the scalp, comb and brush the hair, and I would wear pigtails. I would wear pigtails with twists or pigtails with braids, and it would usually have ribbons or those little hairball rubber bands. They're like little bands that have little balls on the end. They would either go up here, and then you would have barrettes on the end of your twists or on the end of your braids. That was what I usually wore during the week. But whenever you knew Easter was coming, it's like all Black mothers knew that it was about fixing your child's hair in a style that they normally didn't wear. That was a special day, which meant that most Black girls had to get their hair pressed and curled. Now, all y'all Black people out there, y'all know what I'm talking about. But for those who don't know what press and curl means, Madam C.J. Walker invented the hot comb, you know. So it's a comb that you would actually sit in on your burner on your stove and let it get hot. And the prongs on the comb were so close together that when it would go over your hair with the heat, it would straighten your hair. And the problem with that was that it would get very hot. And to get the look that you wanted for all of your hair to be straight, even the edges, sometimes they'd have to get that comb like real close to your face. And I remember doing this whenever my mother would come at me with that comb. I'd feel the heat from that comb, and I would just be ooh. I hated getting my hair press and curled because you had to first get your hair washed. Now, I don't know how other people did it in their house, okay? But in my house, the first step was getting your hair washed. And in African American homes, there was no shampoo chairs, there wasn't no shampoo bowl, there was nothing like that. You literally had to come to the kitchen, and your mother would lay out a towel on the counter. You had to climb up on the counter and lay on your back with your head, laying in the sink. Your mother held your head up, and she would take because we didn't, the sink sprayers, those came later. Those came like, I think the first apartment that we lived in that had a sink sprayer, I think was in the mid 80s. So when I was little during the 70s, there were no sink sprayers. So when your mother held your hand in the sink, she had to get a cup of water, and she would just take the water and pour it all from your hairline all the way back. The problem is that the way that process did two things that I just absolutely hated. Number one, when the water was pouring on your head, it would run down your neck. So that meant whatever you were wearing while you were laying there, the back of your shirt got sopping wet. And sometimes the water would run all the way down to where your pants were. I usually had to go and change. I'd have to go and change clothes. I could not go outside and play after I've had that process done. I just couldn't do it. My clothes were always wet. If it wasn't the wetness of your back and your clothes getting wet, water would always go in your ear. Because when she would pour the water over your head, she'd do the front, but then you had to turn your head this way and you had to turn your head this way. And she'd pour the water, and that water would just go in your ear. And I remember I never liked the way water felt going in my ear. That's probably why I never learned to swim. You'll learn about that down the road in another video. But that has a lot to do with why I never learned to swim, because I never could stand the feeling of water going in my ear. I never could stand that. So when my mother would pour water to rinse the soap out of my hair or all of that, just knowing that it was in my ear and I was constantly trying to turn my head so that it would pour out, I'm constantly trying to wipe it out. I hated that. But that was a process. If you wanted to look pretty on Easter Sunday, every Black girl in the community probably knows exactly what I'm talking about, because that's what we had to do. That was a process that we had to do. No doubt about it. So after you got your hair washed, then you had to let it dry. We didn't have hair dryers back then in the home. So what my mother did basically was she would take a towel and she would dry my hair as much as possible. I was not allowed to go outside, because if I went outside, I was going to play and I was going to get stinky and I was going to get sweaty, which meant your hair was all messy again. But she would let me walk around the house either with my hair braided in plaits, like she would part my hair this way and then this way and put two ponytails here and two ponytails there and let my hair dry. Or she would let me just walk around with it like in an afro style and just let it dry. Once the hair dried, then the dreaded press. Now the curl is different. Down the road, I'll just tell the first part and then I'll explain the second. Okay, the pressing was the final step to your look for Easter, other than the new outfit that you were going to wear. But the press was the hardest part to endure. You've already been tortured with the hair washing, and then to get your hair done in plaits used to hurt because your hair was still kind of wet, but my hair was thick and kinky. So to get a comb through there, sometimes my head would be hurting because my hair was kinky. And so those combs didn't have wide teeth. So your mother was like seriously pushing that comb through there. And the grease would help a little bit. The hair grease would help a little bit to kind of soften the blow. But if you had kinky hair like I did, it was like, okay, this hurts. So then when it was time to press, you had to come into the kitchen again. The mother already had the stove queued up and ready to go. The comb was sitting in there, getting nice and hot. And at that point, your mom starts going in sections. That's why when your hair is braided into plaits, she'd take that first braid, this part over here, she'd straighten this part. And basically just taking the braid apart, parting, putting some grease to grease the scalp, putting some grease on the strands of hair, and taking the comb and just, man. And because your edges, your sides, usually were more kinky than the rest of your hair that was longer, you really, in order to get the completed look, you really had to straighten those edges. And so when that comb, I'm telling you, when that comb get close to, I literally got burned quite a few times. And my mother, what I love, I've heard horror stories from other people where their mothers burned them and their mother's like, oh, child, you all right. You gonna be all right. Don't be crying. My mother did not do that. Every time she burned me, she apologized. She said she was sorry. She would even let me take a break and go watch a cartoon or something. And then she'd say, okay, we need to go back and finish. She was very understanding because she herself, when she was a kid, she went through the same exact thing. So she thoroughly understood what I was going through. But this was the process that you had to do when you wanted to go to church on Easter Sunday. This is what they did. And so once your hair was straightened, back then they did not have curling irons that you curled the hair up in. No, if you wanted curls in your hair, you had to roll your hair up. Yes. Those little pink rollers with clips on them. Yes. Foam hair rollers. Because we didn't have the hard plastic ones. I hate to say it, but the white women wore those. Them hard rollers that didn't have no foam in it, they didn't do nothing for African American hair. We had to have something spongy in there to hold our hair. And those foam or sponge-like plastic hair rollers, you had to roll your hair up. Now, as we got older, you could add setting lotion to the hair. Setting lotion was a kind of like a liquid substance that you could put on the ends of your hair after it's been pressed to try to get a curl to set. You could also do that when the curling irons came into view, because then you could take the setting lotion, put on the curling irons. But that was way down the road. That was like early 80s before all those major appliances started being available in people's homes. But during the 70s, a lot of those things were not there. So you had to improvise. You had to use the basic, the most minimal that you could do. And the rollers was it. What I also hated about that process was that when you rolled your hair, it seemed like it would, I don't know about anybody else, but it always seemed like it took so long to roll your hair. It just always seemed like it took forever to get your hair rolled. And then you had to, I was always a kid who would lose a roller when I slept. I'd go to sleep. They made your head hurt too. Because your head, like I said, my head would be sore. I can't speak for anybody else, but my head would be sore because it went through that whole process of being washed and having your mom massage your scalp and tiki, 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 tiki. Then you went from that to getting your hair combed out so that she could plait your hair so it could dry, putting them in the ponytail so it could dry. Then when your hair then dried up, and if it was kinky when it was wet, the wetness kind of loosed some of the kinkiness. But then when it dried, it get, and she go to take them plates loose, and then she start trying to comb through so that she can put the grease on and everything. By the time you did all that and got your hair rolled, you go to lay your head on the pillow where the rollers are. The rollers would actually aggravate the pain that your head, your scalp was already feeling. The rollers would kind of aggravate that. I remember laying in bed just hating to have to sleep on those rollers. And when I would wake up in the morning, I always had a roller or two that came off while I was asleep. So that meant that my mother, when she noticed that I was missing a roller or two, she would have to come and roll that section back up and leave them on just a little longer so that my curls would look nice. Now, as I stated, I was into frilly dresses. My mother had me dressed in, pinks and yellows and whites. And I'm talking the real frilly, pretty dresses that fanned out, and then you have the ankle socks that have the anklets on them and they're real frilly. And then you have the black patent leather shoes to match your dress. And then my mom, she would always have me wear a necklace. I wasn't allowed to wear earrings though. She felt I was doing, I never had my earrings pierced. Never. I'll get into that in another video that requires another discussion, but my ears were never pierced. So I was never allowed, as a little kid to wear earrings, but she would always put a little necklace on my neck, and my hair would always have ribbons in it. She would always put ribbons in it. And she would always fix my hair so pretty. I mean, she would take those rollers out and you feel the curls just laying on your face. And then my mom would take the curls and swoop them up into a ponytail where they're all just falling down, or she would let the hair hang. Every year she did it different. Every year she would fix my hair in a different style, but she would always have ribbons in my hair. And I remember I would feel so pretty. I would look in the mirror and see myself. And you would tell yourself it was worth it because, you hated the process that it took to get there. But once you arrived, you was like, and I remember being a little kid just admiring what my mother had created in the mirror. My brother, he had his own process. He got his hair washed the same way. However, he would get to go to the barbershop, to get his hair cut. So he got off easy. A lot of what I had to deal with was under my mom's hand. All he did was get his hair washed at home. But whenever he needed his hair done, he went to the barbershop. And I remember going with my mom to take him to the barbershop so that he could get his hair cut. I remember going and sitting in the barbershop. And I remember as a little kid, I used to wonder, how come he gets to come, to a place outside of the home. He doesn't have to have, because sometimes, depending on whether my mother was in the mood to do hair, because there were some Easters where you could tell that she was tired and she really didn't feel like doing it. And that meant that you probably got yelled at more than you normally would. If you complain too much about the heat, she may say something if she was not in a good mood. And see, I always had to deal with that. My brother was able to escape that because he was able to go to the barbershop. So I never understood why she never took me to the beauty shop. Maybe it cost too much because my mother, like I said, she was a single mother, struggling to take care of two kids. Maybe taking both of us outside of the home to get our hair done was not possible at that time. Now, down the road, as I got into my teen years, she was able to pay for me to go to the beauty shop. But when I was little, she did my hair from top to bottom. She did my hair. I remember churches. It was a process for them as well. A week before the Easter service, it was like it was talked about. It was promoted. You were encouraged to bring a friend on Sunday morning for Easter service. You were constantly encouraged. And one of the things, and they're still doing it to this day, I can't speak for other churches. I can only speak for Church of God in Christ and Black churches, Black Baptist churches. Easter speeches. I remember every Easter from the time I was old enough to say words, I was given an Easter speech. I believe the year that I didn't have to say Easter speeches anymore was 12 years old. But up until 12 years old, I and other children in the church were given Easter speeches. And basically what they were poems written by unknown artists or known artists. You really didn't know who wrote the stuff. It was some pretty decent stuff too. I'm not going to lie. Me being a poet, I cannot knock some of the Easter speeches I said every year and what I've heard other kids say. They all rhyme. They all pertain to Christ and his resurrection. So I don't know where they got them from. I never looked online. I can look online now and probably find them. But back then, when there was no computer, there was no Google, there was no social media, I often wondered, where did they get these Easter speeches? Because they had them every year. And I never read the same Easter speech. Every year I had a different speech. Every year the other kids had different speeches. So I have absolutely no idea where these churches got these speeches from, but every year you had to read them. And what I loved was, parents were always helping their kids. That's one thing I saw in church. I didn't see it in the school that I went to. A lot of parents were not involved in their school's activities. Like my mom was involved in everything I did at school, but I saw absence of a lot of parents in schools. But when it came to church, those parents were there. And when their kid would go up there, you had to rehearse your Easter speech so that by the time you gave it on Sunday, you were to recite it. You were to get up there and not have the paper in your hand. You were supposed to take it home and memorize it over and over and over again. So every now and then a kid would get up there and you could tell that either they didn't practice it like they were supposed to, or they got so scared at the crowd, because that happened a lot. If you were not a kid who was comfortable being up in front of people, you standing up there, and everybody in the church is looking at you to say your message, some kids would freeze. And what I loved was how you would see these moms and dads come up there to stand with their kid and bend down and put the mic to the kid's face, and they're whispering the word into the kid's head, or you'd see if the kid was big enough to stand up there by themselves, but they may have forgot, you'd hear mom or dad, shouting the word or whispering the word to their child to help them along. I remember seeing that, and I never forgot mine. My mama made me and my brother learn our speeches, and I never forgot mine. It was almost like I was meant to recite. Case in point, I am a poet. So it was like that was a breeding ground for me. But my brother and I, we never forgot ours because our mother, she had us rehearse. We had to recite it to her, several times before we went to bed that night. We had to recite, and, that was something that and what's really funny, I have a nephew named Nayland, and I haven't been able to physically go and see him, but they posted a video on his mom's Facebook page, and here he was in his Easter outfit, and they took video footage of him saying his Easter speech. That is the good thing about this day and age that my day and age didn't have. I would have loved to have video recordings of my Easters past. I would have loved to have had that. All I have is my memory to rely on. Kids today can actually capture the moment. And I think that's why I do videography now. I think that's why in my business, I do videography, because I like capturing the memory, because one day you may lose this memory. Okay. As we age and as we get older, we may lose this. But if you've got a way to capture it, you don't have to rely on this anymore. You can actually be taken back in time to that actual memory. And that's something that my generation and the generations before me, we don't have that luxury. So to see Nayland, when I looked at the video and I seen him reciting his Easter speech, it just made me smile, because I said, the many times that I got up and did Easter speeches, the many times that my mom and all the other kids that I went to church with, how we all got up there and said our Easter speeches, and how here it is, we have no memory captured of that. There may be some people that may have took a photo, but you still have to try to remember what happened at that moment when you took that photo. Video, you don't have to question. It takes you back there. So I smiled when I saw that. To be 53 years old and then see my great nephew give his Easter speech, to know that kids are still doing that after all these years, it just touched my heart to see that. After you did Easter speeches, then there was the Easter egg hunt. Now, what I loved about my mother was that she always bought me and my brother Easter baskets before we went to church, because she was uncertain of what the church was going to do, because each church was different when it came to that regard. You didn't know whether a church was going to give all the kids something individually, or whether they was just going to have this mass, Easter egg hunt, and it was everybody for themselves. My mother never knew what the church was going to do, and she didn't want us to feel slighted. So she would always buy us these little Easter baskets. And I remember the Easter baskets that I grew up with came with the plastic eggs. First of all, you had the wooden basket. All these colored baskets these kids got now, please. We didn't have that. You had a wooden basket. The wooden woven basket with a handle on it. Okay, that's what you had. No colors. Inside was that fake plastic green stuff that looked like grass, but it was plastic. It looked like the same stuff. It looked like the same tinsel that you put on your Christmas tree, but it was just darker green, and it was lined inside the basket. Then you had these plastic eggs that you could open up, and some people would fill them with candy. Some of them would put little toys in them, but that was the only way you got any Easter egg candy, was you had these little plastic Easter eggs that you opened up. You just flip them open, and your mom or your dad or your Sunday school teacher or grandma or whoever would put candy inside those little plastic eggs and close it up and put it inside the bag. So you had the eggs with the candy in it. You probably had one, what is that egg called? It's the one that they do the crab, I can't think of it. It's a cream Easter egg. It's chocolate and it's got like this creamy marshmallow stuff on the inside. You may have one of those eggs. And then you would have a chocolate Easter bunny. They'd get them little boxes that have the chocolate mold Easter egg bunny inside the little box. You'd have one that's sitting in your basket. And then you would have some Easter eggs, probably 2 to start you off. And then you were told the church would have Easter egg hunt, and they'd have all us kids stay in the church while all the adults went outside. And that depended on whether it was warm outside. If it was cold, they would just give us Easter eggs inside the church. They wouldn't even have an Easter egg hunt. You only had the Easter egg hunt if it was warm outside and sunny. But on days it was sunny, we would stay inside the church. They tell the kids to stay inside, and the adults of the church would go outside and hide all these Easter eggs, and then they'd let us out and we'd go for it. And they didn't give prizes to whoever got the most Easter eggs. They figured, hey, you're supposed to find the Easter eggs. That's the thrill of the hunt. If you get more Easter eggs than everybody else and you can just walk around, I got more Easter eggs. As we got older, they started giving prizes. But, when I was real little, they didn't do that. Now, I've heard that in Baptist churches, matter of fact, my pastor's wife, who passed away in 2021, Mother Landrum, she told me that Baptist churches also had this thing called Easter Parade. Now, I grew up Church of God in Christ, so we didn't have this. So I was totally blown away when she told me this. She said that a lot of Baptist churches had the Easter Parade, said that before they would do the Easter egg hunt, the kids would walk around and parade from the back of the church. They would get in a line, and from the back of the church all the way to the front and all the way around the congregation, they would parade their outfits. These kids would walk around and they would sing this song, I'm in the Easter Parade, or something like that. And while the song was being sung, the kids would walk around and show off their outfits. Okay, that's Baptist. Church of God in Christ didn't do that. It was enough that you had a new outfit. It was enough. They wasn't going to let you get up there and parade and front it off. They wasn't going to let you do that. So I told her, I said, no, Church of God in Christ didn't do that. But she let me know that that was something that Baptist churches did. And that was pretty much after you went to church and you went through all that and you went home and you ate Easter dinner. My mother usually made ham for Easter. That's usually what we had every Easter. And my mother could burn a ham, honey. And I don't mean burn in a bad way. I'm talking she could make, let's just put it this way. I don't have high blood pressure for no reason, okay? My mother kind of started that because I'm telling you, she made a ham that was out of this world. And then when she made the yeast rolls and all, oh Lord, don't get me started. So Easter dinner was almost the same as Thanksgiving dinner and Christmas. It was one of those times where you actually came home from church and you had a big meal. And I remember On Easter, there were two stories that you could catch on regular TV. Mind you, this was not during streaming. There was no such thing as streaming or DVDs or videotapes. This was back when you had to look in the TV guide, because that's what you had. You didn't have Google and all that. You had a TV guide. They would send TV guides to families in the mail. They would mail them to you. You pay for a subscription and your TV guide would come every month. And it had a lineup of what shows were coming on what channels. You had to look up the show you wanted and wait for that day for it to come on and make sure that you're home when it comes on. Because if you ain't home, you're going to miss it. See, y'all, now we're living in a time where you don't have to miss nothing. Everything is readily available and you can look at it anytime you want to. I would have killed for that when I was young, but they didn't have that. So my mother would always find out the night before Easter whether one or two movies was coming on, because it was only two. The Greatest Story That's Ever Told, and that was about Jesus Christ, or the Ten Commandments. Those were the only two Christian movies that would come on at Easter. And so my mother, after you ate your big meal, everyone would crowd around the TV and watch one of those two movies and then prepare for the next day, going to school. That was the Easter process every single year. But like I said, as I got older, things kind of changed a little bit. When you get older, the Easter egg hunts don't mean anything to you anymore. The older you get, you watch the younger kids that are coming up after you. They're still into Easter egg hunts. But when you get, because I think I lost interest in Easter egg hunts when I was probably around 8 years old. I didn't really want to do them anymore. When I was little, 5, 6, 7, and probably even younger than that. I just can't remember past that. But my mother, I'm sure, had me out there. But right about 8 and 9 years old, I didn't really want to do the Easter egg hunt because it lost its thrill. We were still members of the same church. So it's like, how many different ways can you hide something without me knowing that, okay, this is where you hid it last year. You hid it over here the year before. You hid it over there. Okay, that takes the fun out of it. If I can find where you put it and I pretty much know you're going to put it there again, then it loses its appeal. So that's when I kind of just was like, I ain't into the Easter egg hunts. I still had to have the new outfit though. Do you know how old I was when having a new outfit for Easter no longer mattered to me? I'd probably say 25 years old. At 25, I didn't care about having a new outfit. I knew that I could wear anything in my closet as long as I looked nice. That's all that mattered. But up until I turned 25, from the time I was old enough till the time I was 25, I had to have a new outfit. And I would get upset if it looked like I wasn't going to get one. I would get literally angry if I didn't think I could get a new outfit for Easter. Now at this age, man, please. It's like, now I know I'm more concerned with what Easter represents. When you're a kid, you're more concerned about what you can get out of it. But when you start to really take your walk with the Lord seriously and you realize that this is not about what you can get and how it benefits you and how much fun you're going to get, when you realize that this is celebrating a relationship that happened long before you were even born, and that it matters more that you know what that is and that you're a part of it than what you look like. For every person to reach that point, it's a different age. For me, it was 25. At 25, I didn't care about that anymore. I was more concerned with what it meant. But up until then, child, please, I was like every other kid out there, selfishly thinking about what I was going to get. And God is patient with that because he knows we're born into selfish. That comes with being born. You're going to be selfish until God shows you that that's not how he wants you to be. But he understands that's how you are. You know what I'm saying? So I tell you, Easter now represents the fabric of who I am. It's not about what I put on, it's what I live daily. I would not be headed to heaven if it wasn't for what Jesus did on the cross. And that's what Easter celebrates, what he did for us. Not what we can get out of him. You see what I'm saying? So, God is very understanding. And I think that's one of the things that I want to convey to people who don't know who Jesus is or doesn't want to believe that there is a God and that he has a son named Jesus. I want to clarify that God understands even your doubt. He made you. So he's going to understand the way you think. Trust me, your doubt of who he is, your denial of who he is, your unacceptance of who he is no surprise to him. He already knew you was going to think that way. I think that's what I try to let people know is that God understands. He just knows that once you really figure out how much he really does love you and how much he exists in pretty much everything you do, you just don't recognize that. He knows that once you figure it out, you'll really know what true love is. You'll really know how much he loved you. But he can't force you to find that out. That's something that you have to want to do on your own. Easter represents God loving us so much that he did the ultimate for us. And he just wants to see if you're going to do the ultimate for him. Do you believe that he did it? I mean, trust me, he ain't asking too much of you. It ain't like he's asking us to climb up on a cross and lay down our life. He could and be well within his rights to do so, but he don't ask you to do that. He just asks you to believe in him, to believe that he did it for you. That's all he asks. So I just wanted to share, my memories of Easter. And like I said, is this video went into detail about my experiences, but when you really stop and think about it, the actual incidents are not that long because they were pretty much a repeated thing every year. It gradually changed due to your maturity level, but it was pretty much still the same process, so I admire the fact that we're living in a time where I can actually see kids go through the same process. Now, I don't know whether girls are still getting their hair done the way mine was. I think a lot of little girls, we got so many options now, for little girls. They can go to a beauty shop now and get their hair done, and they don't even have to wear their own hair. They can wear braids. They can wear locks. They can wear hair weave. They can wear wigs. Now, not little girls, but I mean, you got teenagers and stuff where they don't actually have to sit for hours and go through all the grueling process that I had to go through and so many other girls like me had to go through. They actually have a way to cut that time down, cut that suffering down, because you have all these options. And like I said, you can capture the memory of your children's Easters, because all you got to do is whip out a cell phone and hold your camera up, and boom, you've captured it. There are so many different things now, so many different options now for people where Easter can be celebrated beyond what I ever thought. Every holiday, every memory can be celebrated beyond what I was used to, because we were so limited back then during those times. We were so limited in what we could do. But what I loved about my childhood was I saw them take those limits and push them as far as they could. Because, like I said, when I talk about how I had to climb up on that counter and lay up there and have my mother wash my hair, a lot of girls, I told some kids that I transported, I told them about that, and they was, huh? You actually got on the counter in the kitchen to get your hair washed? I mean, they was like, they didn't even know what I was talking about. So it is a pleasure for me to share my memories of my childhood, memories that I grew up with. Because if I can help this generation see how blessed they are to have all the options they have, I'm grateful to do so. Now, as I've stated, y'all, I'm going to go ahead and end this. But as I stated before, if you didn't hear it from these two lips, then you've been lied to and you've been tricked. Because before you can repeat it or even try to debate it, you just better make sure that you heard me say it. All right, y'all. Thank y'all for hanging out with me, going down Easter's memory lane. I would love for you to share in the comments about your memories of Easter. I'm pretty sure I got some people out there who can identify with me, but then y'all might have something I ain't never heard of. So please go off in the comments. Let me hear what y'all's memories of Easter are like. I would love to see them. And again, thank y'all for hanging out with a sister. I do appreciate it.
If you like my vibe, be sure to like, share, and subscribe. Till the next time, see ya!